Okay, this video is very important. Please watch it through. In regards to Iran's president, there's a lot more going on than you think. In fact, they're even changing my voice, and they're fuming and poisoning me to make it harder for me to explain. This connects to eugenics and to the social engineering we see all over the planet. Like it or not, you live on a planet where things are integrated and or interconnected. Okay? Things are connected in various ways. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes every part and every component is connected to every other part. But I don't want to make this too hard for you. I'll make it easy for you to understand. Basically, people who are promoting white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy, which includes people who breed with other races, people who are biracial, they're promoting their, patriarchal lines, the lines of the male members of their families, okay, as they breed with people all over the world. They're changing the world in a way that is pure evil, okay, in a way that is irredeemable, for sure. In fact, after my flesh dies, there'll be no way to be moral. Now think about it. If you wanted to be moral, how would you do it? You say, well, you might help the poor, right? Well, the poor are just part of the infrastructure of the rich. Yes, you should help them, but that's just like the basic decent thing to do. It's not moral enough to be moral. It's just decent, right? If you get what I mean. It's kind of semantics, but it's not truly moral. In order to do what is truly moral, you have to have the highest cause, okay? And that cannot occur after my flesh dies because the planet will have cheated people. Now, believe it or not, there's a lot of racial components to what's going on because they're scientific racists with their phallic symbols. Their symbols, excuse my French, they're penis symbols, right? They're statues of obelisks and so on. It represents them trying to breed their genes and cheat everyone else out of attractive females. We see it with their wives, their secretaries, how they socially engineer, their urban planning, right? Their city development, their infrastructure plans. We see that that's what's going on. And I don't mean bridges so much and roads, but really what is a commercial zone? Their zoning. What's a residential area? What types of people they expect to live there? And who oversees the process? There are millions and millions of people in America alone that oversee the process of urban planning and social engineering. There's social clubs, political groups. There's government groups, police groups, military groups, you name it. And they're all concerned with this stuff. Where they put their hidden cameras, where they put their informants, their government assets, their cult members, what have you. They're social club members. They're, secret society members. And how cheesy is that, right? A secret society. And I never ceases to amaze. Whenever I think of them, I'm like, man, these guys are cheesy and corny and shallow. That's crazy. Anyway, so you see that's going on. Okay, now why is it going on? Again, kings wear swords. Now again, I'm going to talk about some racial issues. Take a deep breath, pause the video, do some stretches if you have to. But these issues are important and we have to touch on them. No offense to any race. Okay, I grew up friends with every race you can imagine. I'm not racist. But we know for sure that there are people who are jealous of specific black people. In America, there may be 20,000 of these black people in America, and not all of them. I'm basically the only one who's really holy. My father and I are the only really holy people on the planet. We'll get to that. You'll see that I'm right. Bear with me. Okay? There's maybe 20,000 of them. Of those 20,000, maybe 5,000 of them, maybe, are both single, between 18 and 45 or 50, okay, and very attractive, okay? That's like 100 per state on average. That's not very much. And there's a lot of people who have been conditioned to only date their own race, their own religion, what have you, okay? But nevertheless, there's this extreme jealousy. And there's a fanatic desire for social control because they know, like in Egypt, where people from all over the world will go there. And Egypt, it was such a multicultural place that to this day, many people try to argue that magically it wasn't founded by black people, right? Bear with me. You'll see that I'm right. You'll see that this has to be said. Bear with me. This is important. It connects to the Iranian president. Bear with me. So even in Egypt, they looked up to the pharaoh who, when he was really looked up to, was black. The first dynasty, Narmer, even Ramses, way later, 18, 19 dynasty. These guys still had blackish skin for the most part. They were looked up to. Because that's the natural state of humanity. And it's not the end of the world. For those of you who want to turn this video off, hear me out. Did you grow up looking up to Michael Jordan and Martin Luther King? Did you respect them more than Einstein and Elon Musk and Nikola Tesla and George Washington and George Bush? Okay, and Andre Agassi, the tennis player, and Chris Mullin, the basketball player. Yes, everyone did. This is what naturally happens. And there's been a huge movement to prevent that, and it's not the end of the world. When people are looking up to Martin Luther King and Michael Jordan, were there still racists everywhere? Yes. People still dating the race for the most part? Yes. Were people still saying, ew, so-and-so guy, referring to certain races, we'll say. Yes. Because people aren't too smart. Even if I was the most famous person that ever lived, that would still be going on because they're racist first, they're greedy first, they're selfish first, they're conformist first, they're social norm fanatic first, and then on their free time, if they can give a poor person some money, they might do that. When they go to church, it's shallow. Look how they've responded to the state of the world. With complete falsehood and psychology. Not a speck of heart among them. Not a speck. Because people are shallow and fake and cowardly and evil and selfish, and they're married to gold diggers first and foremost. So don't be like, oh my gosh, the blacks are trying to take over. That's fucking retarded. Think. So where did Michael Jordan's athletic ability come from? Where did the R&B singer's romantic ability come from? Why were they called soul brothers? Where did Martin Luther King's profound spiritual nature come from? It came from African martial arts, which often accompanied music. And when they needed to calm down, women who are singing in a beautiful way. Martial is marital scramble. So the natural order is an African martial art order. Now, why am I telling you this when I'm talking about the Iranian president being killed covertly? And let's face it, the odds are astronomical that it was just a random helicopter crash. The odds are unbelievably unlikely. It's unbelievably unlikely that that's a random crash. He was fucking murdered, and he was murdered by globalists, and Israel had a hand in it. The West had their hand in it. There's no other way to look at it. It was a retaliation. And it was also people trying to scapegoat Israel when there's way more to it than that. International Jews, international white supremacists, international LGBT, they all had their hand in it. I'll tell you that right now. You'll see. It'll eventually come out 20, 30 years. Watch, it'll come out. If it doesn't come out before then. And it's a very creepy thought if it doesn't come out at all. Wow, what kind of psycho world would that be, right? So I don't know for sure on that issue, but almost certainly it will. So as we look at this thing, they're doing eugenics. Write down the word eugenics, EUGENICS. When I first started talking about this back in 2011 or 12 or whenever it was, I was in such a rush. I was brushing my teeth. I hadn't finished brushing my teeth. I started making the video and it sounded all weird, okay? Because I was so excited. I said, this has to be said. More than I have to look good, this has to be said. And that's like the theme of every video I have. So many videos, I look bad, and then I look way worse when they edit my videos to try to make it so I look crazy. I look like a genius who's a little unkempt, and they made it so I look like a weird, unfocused homosexual or something. No offense to the LGBT community. They're doing eugenics. That's why. Why are there no respectable black people in public view? Obama's 2 terms, what did it yield? Peanuts. Why? Because they don't want you to respect black leadership. Why did they kill Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? Different religions. Martin Luther King was kissing their ass to some degree. They still killed him because they don't want you to respect African heterosexual martial art qualities. Heterosexual, uncontrolled opposition. An idea that after my flesh dies, they will have finished off completely. There will only be like the stump after a tree has been cut off. It has been cut down. Never to be revived again. Why? Because they worship the jealous, petty, senseless, beta devil spirits of the governing class. That anyone with any heart and respect for themselves and God Almighty would never reproduce with ever. Anyone who respects the righteous who have died would never take part in their sickness on the highest level. And anyone with any sense is not going to reproduce anymore. They worship the fucking deceitful, counterfeit, and replace devil. Why does a king wear a sword? For those who say, no, he's wrong. No, Egypt this, no, Egypt. No, he's wrong. Some guy with a wig is ideal. Come on, guys. Okay, why does a king wear a sword? Why a sword? Why is that a symbol of duty? Why is that a symbol of royalty when it's used in the proper context? Because it's naturally where we all come from. What black people went beyond other people for various reasons has to do with who ended up where exactly and why. When Egypt was like the trade center, Horus was a deity of, the idea of the son of God for the fertile ground and Set for the desert. And beyond the desert was, in a sense, a worse desert, which was other nations. No offense to anybody, but this is how the Egyptians saw it, and this is why people ended up where they went. And I know there's a lot of people out there that I find very friendly, very agreeable, very likable. Every race you can imagine. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just going to tell the truth directly and to the point and just say, hey, that's why I'm saying it this way. It's directly to the point. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just going to say it. If you think it's too harsh, put it in the comments. We'll discuss it. But there are people dying all over the world, people being raped and abused because people won't admit this thing and they won't respond by their actions to this truth. The way is the truth and the life. The truth is we all come from Africa. God made us in Africa. So we must first look to Africa to understand who we are. I am who I am. God said to Moses, go tell him I am who I am. And Hebrew is an Afro-Asiatic language. And the Jews are just characters in a story. And every country in the world, every people in the world had their stories where they were like the center of the story. Without exception, almost without exception. And probably without exception, I don't know. But certainly it's everywhere you look. That is the situation. And even in their own story, it says the kingdom of heaven will be taken away from you. The scribes said, hey, we got to put this here or else we're not doing the idea of religion justice. They're right by Africa. Say, look, yes, this black martial artist order is the order of God. What the fuck did you think it was? Pee Wee Herman, George Bush, King Charles? What the fuck did you think? Carlton? Well, I'm black too, guys. Come on. No. The Royal African Falcon Heterosexual Transcendent Hero Martial Art Order. That is the order of God. So again, no offense to anybody, but this has everything to do with their quote-unquote New World Order. We see eugenics and masonry was about the self-direction of mankind. The wise and foolish builders. It's foolish to build your own way. The Tower of Babel. They're completing the treachery of Babylon. And Nimrod did not build the Tower of Babel. Nimrod founded Babylon. You think as soon as he touched down, he founded it, he grouped everyone together in no time flat. Next thing you know, they're building a tower. That's not how it went. It's after he died, they started building the tower. And the fruit of that thinking included Nebuchadnezzar, who said to swallow the Jews like a serpent. Okay? And when you swallow something, you merge it with yourself. That's why the serpent in Egypt was said to try to swallow the sun and try to consume him and use him to, use the nutrients of the sun to its own serpentine, snake-like, crafty serpent in the Garden of Eden agenda. Its own movement, its own cause. You see, but I will return to God and I will not be swallowed. I'll remain intact. I struggled and I fought gallantly with honor and splendor, with nobility and virtue, with morals and justice and righteousness, and I'll return to my Maker intact. The snake will not swallow the sun. Apep and Set have lost. Now will you as individuals, will you direct your families to lose too? Will you accept what God set apart and say, look, we're all human beings. I just happen to be a different color than this person. Why should I then say, hey, we're going to cheat you, man? Because our ancestors, in the last, in recent history, moved away from Africa. Relatively recent history. After like 200 plus thousand years, 300 plus, thousand years, whatever it is, in Africa, maybe 100,000 years ago, they moved out. And we turned a little different. And even though, people have been breeding with each other to some degree, because of those differences, we're not going to accept you, man. That's how it is, man. We derive pride from our human conception of who we are. Psychological construct, buddy, for me. Me and my family, me and my kids. Because God isn't good enough for them. Only the devil's psychological. It's fucking retarded. Think about it. Don't be racist. I'm biracial. I'm not racist. Don't be racist. Tell the truth. Live the truth. Rally to me. No offense to anybody. I hope you can do what's right in time so that God can bless you, so that I can bless you. Thank you.